Welcome to another episode of Moments with Nyengeterai. I'm so excited to be back again with you guys. Thank you for coming back and thank you for being a part of this community. Just coming back to learn from my guest stories, to heal or to be inspired. And I just want to thank you for the likes, for subscribing, and also for the messages that you're sending. And we're getting more and more messages, and I'm really, really excited, and I'm really enjoying this community. So today, I have a very, very exciting guest. We had listed him as one of our guests in the future, and we're just wondering how we'd get around, whether we'd have to get on a plane with Tuba and go to him. But then he happened to be in Harare, and I saw him dancing with his wife on his post, and I reached out and I said, Carl, please come to the platform for an interview. Carl, welcome.
Thank you. I'm really here for the healing, to be honest. I came for the healing. I came for the healing, guys. The healing service.
No, Carl, it's a pleasure. It's amazing. And I know we've already started the podcast before we.
Oh yeah. We had. I think we did 3 episodes when we alone, outside, just in the reception. We were like, you missed out on the content. Which is why you should do like live. HICC 7,000 guests. This is what we need.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Healing service.
Yeah, healing service. How it's so good to have you.
No, thank you and thank
you to the beautiful Nelly to make sure that Nelsie to make sure that you're in Harare.
Thank you. Yes.
And I just want you to talk. I know everybody knows you from social media, from your stand-up comedies and everything else, but I just want to know, who is Carl?
Carl. Yes, who is he? That's the number one question. Still on a journey of self-discovery, but maybe to just outline, I've happened to have been a lot of things in my life, which I only found out when doing a TED talk. Just a slight flex, that I'm a polymath, which is a person who just manages to grasp many different things, and that's kind of largely informed what I do in my life. The things that I've been known for are the things that I've used to survive certain moments in my life. So when I couldn't afford groceries, I trained myself to become a better chef so that I wouldn't have to buy food, that I would get paid to cook. When I discovered that, I wanted to train my dad or manage him as a stand-up comedian, because he was a stand-up comedian. I wasn't the comedian. So I knew business, I knew marketing. I was going to manage my dad and take him around the world and make money from that perspective so that my dad could have a nice retirement package. He was a teacher, worked all his life. But unfortunately, after showing my dad how to do comedy, like on a commercial level, the first day I did a show, that was the last time I saw my dad alive. And so that became like my mission, right? And like even now working in the tourism space, as you travel around the world, first you go around the world and you make fun of your own country because you think your country is so bad. Then you find out a lot of people are proud of their country and their countries have nothing to be proud of on the surface. And so I came back and I felt like I needed to lend my voice to the narrative of promoting Brand Zimbabwe. And so coming into the tourism space and trying to figure out other ways to empower people, getting into rural tourism. That's how I find myself in this particular position. So I'm a jack of all trades. I'm a person who just loves Zimbabwe, I think, extremely passionately. I love Zimbabwe from the perspective that I know there's bad things about Zimbabwe, but I also know that there's good. And I think the good can outweigh the bad if the good is given enough of a voice so that it generates the revenues to fix the bad. And I'm just that guy that I feel I want to lend my voice in there, my expertise in there, my desires, my wishes, my dreams, everything in there, whether I'm training young people. So that's who I am in a nutshell.
Wow. But you know what? You know what? I'm just so excited because I think you brought up about like so many different viewpoints and the reason why you got into those things. Like first of all, when you said comedy because of your dad, I actually want to start there. Because the first time I really knew Carl was Carl the comedian. I mean, I remember still working in corporate and we were having a practice. So I knew Carl the comedian. So tell me about your relationship. Let's go back. Let's talk about your dad.
Yes.
Let's talk about your relationship with your dad.
Yeah. So I grew. I was born on Africa Day. That'll be important later as we discuss. I was born on 25 May. In Bulawayo, my dad and Ndebele teacher and my mother a Shona teacher, both hooked up at Njube school in Bulawayo. It was quite controversial apparently because these two teachers had become pregnant.
Which school were they? Which school
They were teaching at Ncube. And then
I
so
grew up in Zimbabwe.
Mr. Ncube and Miss Chakadama, she got pregnant. Everyone knew of this, so I was the product of this. So when I was born, I became a product or a symbol within my family, in the sense that obviously we know what was going on within that time going into independence. My grandmothers had the foresight that something like tribe would become an issue in Zimbabwe. And so myself and then consequently my brother were then given Shona names. And those Shona names were very specific to the people we'd become. So I was named Carl Joshua Ncube, because even my grandfather used to say to my mom, like, yes, you've joined our clan, we're Ndebele, but nobody must force you to learn our language. They must all learn yours. And so my grandmother also had the same philosophy on my mom's side, that nobody must force you to my dad to learn Shona. We didn't understand the foresight they had, because sooner or later it became a huge problem. And sooner or later it became my life's mission, because when my parents then divorced, this is where the problems started, the fracture. So what people were experiencing in the country as tribalism, I was experiencing it at a family level. So my family in Harare did not really consider me to be Shona. Or quite often, you're just a little kid, but every joke that is being made about you is about how you're Ndebele, come this dead, and what. And on the other side, it's the same thing, where it was difficult to speak Ndebele because my accent was very Shona. And so those are the kind of problems that I had. So I quickly identified, in terms of my relationship, my dad helped me identify with being Zimbabwean. Like, Carl, you are good. I remember my dad was as young as 5. He used to tell me, you're going to be famous. You're such a brilliant little boy. You're going to be famous. My dad gave me all the confidence. And it was weird because my mom wasn't like that. My mom was about hard work. So my dad was like, no, you have a talent. It's going to take you far. You're going to be the biggest thing. My dad got that in my head very young. And my mom was hard work. So I used to hate my mom because my mom didn't believe in this like easy fame, easy come, easy go type thing.
Easy go.
Right? My mom was like, hard work. You wake up at 6 in the morning, you work, nobody will give you anything. When I complained about my relatives treating me like crap, my mom would be like, just learn to
work.
Yeah, fix your own space, So my relationship with my mom and my dad was very different. So my dad was very encouraging. He was the person who centered me from an emotional perspective. And I suppose even my challenges with mental health actually came from losing my father a lot more. And then my mom was the hard work person. So my dad was a comedian, a stand-up comedian. He was a teacher, a woodwork teacher, technical graphics and so on. And so my dad was always teaching me what he knows. So I became a little replica of my dad. In fact, I used to tell my dad's jokes, even though my dad's jokes were a little bit inappropriate because they talked about divorce. Imagine I'm a 5-year-old. I'm like, do you know what I hate about women? Those are my dad's jokes, right? Yeah. So my dad taught me a very important lesson that a lot of fathers maybe don't know about in Zimbabwe: the issue of legacy, the issue of transference to your offspring, whether it's a boy or a girl. That there's a need to sit down and say, my son, today I am teaching you about this. Our family is associated with this. We're a family of hospitality, laughs, jokes. That's what he used to say. We're about love, togetherness. He taught me values over and over again. My mom taught me how to implement those values without even realizing it, right? So my mom didn't have like the quotes my dad had. My mother just, hard work, so like, that kind of thing. And so my relationship with my dad was the first part, but what my mother taught me is what is very key in my business, which is how do you get these things? It's easy to say we have talents, like Zimbabwe saying we have minerals, but if you don't know how to use them,
to process them.
Yeah. So my dad was like, yeah, you have gold, you have platinum. My tourist attractions. Now you've got everything. But my mother was like, yes, but you need to go to tourism markets to get the investors in. You need to be able to do X, Y, Z in order to do that. It's not just about having, it's about how you do it. So that just in a nutshell kind of explains, one, my relationship with my dad, but then consequently also my relationship with my mom. Because I think in the later years, I began to understand my mother more and appreciate what she did but my dad was the one who kickstarted this belief system, this never say die thing that I have. Yeah.
Because that's what I really want to touch on, because you find that a lot of kids will have both parents in the same house,
Yeah.
living together, but they don't have what you were getting.
Yeah.
You had someone who affirmed you, then you had someone who was,
Building you,
who
right?
was building you in the background.
Yeah.
And which is, even though they were not together, they managed to produce that. So I want to understand the importance of affirmations, like what they meant to you, how they propelled you, what your dad did. How did it give you that?
Yeah, I think the thing is we need to be very specific to understand that in order to be successful, it cannot start with perfection. A seed goes into the ground, which is a dark, lonely place. It starts germinating before anybody even knows what's happening. In fact, to germinate, it almost feels like drowning. So if you're a seed and you're being rained upon, and you don't even know where this water is coming from, is mud. Can you imagine how difficult it is? So even when you germinate, then there's the next bit where something wants to eat you. A goat, a chicken, a bird, right? And unless you're being nurtured by a farmer who's taking the time, right? And a lot of the times we think it's about perfection. We're trying to fix problems. And yet actually it's the problems that are molding us secretly into what we are becoming. We're not the two of us right now are not the product of perfection. If there was perfection, we would have sat back and enjoyed that perfection. And in fact, we would have learned nothing. But unfortunately, the fire that we're put into is almost, actually, if you look through history, statistically, both of us are marketers. So we deal with stats. We know the numbers. If we know that every autobiography written by every successful person has these same characteristics: homeless, betrayal, heartbreak, death, depression, then we must accept that it is the course of human life to go through that. We must not try and pretend that it's the absence of these things. Yeah. And I think right now we're in a generation where we're trying to prevent it. So sometimes when we hear like something is going on, we're very quick to guard and fix and whatever. We don't understand, like even as a country, there's a reason why we're where we are. It is to allow each and every one of us to understand we have a part to play. We're not the guys who look back and say, the government must, or this company must, or that person. If you are not doing your part, this whole lesson is teaching us as a nation that we must look introspective and say, yes, I know who's to blame, but add yourself to that equation as well, because you're also part of the, do you get what I'm saying? So I think that is one of the biggest backbones of learning, especially from my parents, is that they taught me marriages don't last. So that's how I dealt with my failed first marriage, to be able to know that I could get married again and it could be perfect. But it was the imperfection of this first marriage that helped me to get to this point.
Oh my God, today I'm trying to unpack now all those things. All right. Okay. I'm going to unpack.
Yes,
now that you started talking about marriage. Oh my gosh. Okay. Let's go to your lessons from you. Because you said something like your parents taught you that, marriages don't last.
Yeah, they don't.
But then it made you a better husband in your second marriage.
Yes.
Tell me about the lessons from what you learned from your first marriage and from seeing your parents' marriage that has helped you to become Carl, the husband that Nelsie has now.
Yeah. So I think in my first marriage, I was trying to correct my parents' marriage. So I largely was not in that marriage thinking it was about happiness. I was more trying to manage what makes us stay together, more like trying to prevent, I was the guy trying to prevent everything. And so this is where my first cycle of depression actually started, was not realizing that, and unfortunately, to the credit of my first wife, she was very good at trying to build me to say, Carl, I don't know if you noticed, but you're a man, eh? I don't expect this behavior from you. These are my expectations. This is what I feel I need from you. And as long as you don't do that, you're always going to put our marriage under stress. The things you think you are fixing are your insecurities. I can't deal with that. And unfortunately, that marriage would never last because I was too young to even see it. So I went through this whole wilderness of sorts, many ex-girlfriends, but I went through this wilderness of sorts, just unpacking that. And eventually, I think, because Nelsie was in the picture a long time, she was a good friend of mine for a while. And understanding that you do marry your best friend. That's what you look out for. You don't go out. This whole idea that we go out to find someone, we are surrounded by our husbands and wives. We are surrounded. But
they're
we want
right next to you.
Yes, we want to look outside of this familiarity that we have. And yet, like I always say to people, like before you even start looking at because people like my profile, because they see many beautiful women I take selfies with, and they are very thirsty men who think, and I'm like, guy, just look around you. Your wife was sitting right next to you every day. The person was there for you, because when it counts, when we strip away the looks, when we strip away everything, there will be the moment where you're Carl Joshua Ncube lying in a hospital bed in South Africa, when all your relatives are saying, baby, let's put you on a bus back to Zimbabwe. And the one person who's standing for you, who's interested in your life, is the person. It's nothing to do with what happens in the bedroom. It's to do with the decisions that keep us alive as people. The person who says, when you are, I remembered when I was going through this mental breakdown, I was taking all this medication and stuff, and I remembered I just wanted my wife out of the equation, because I was like, I'm going to do something very stupid to myself, and I don't want Nelsie having to wake up one day and her husband has done something. So it was better to kick her out. Then I could be left to my own devices. Nelsie just said, no. I don't know who you think you are, but you don't tell me what to do. I mean, your wife doesn't mean I'm your possession. No, I mean, like, you don't tell me we didn't live a banner, And how do you find that out on a date? How do you learn about that on a date? You're not going to learn that on a date. You learn that by being around a certain type of a person your entire life. So that's how I started to learn to become a different husband, even for Nelsie. Nelsie taught me one very important thing, which was we have roles. And right at the beginning, let's state that. I did a presentation to Nelsie to say, okay, so there are two positions in this household.
In this household.
So there's one head of house, and then the other one is operations of house. So I think I can do the head of house thing, but here's what my presentation is for the next 10 years. So I did a PowerPoint presentation, an organogram, structured exactly what we were going to do, put her needs and said, this is my needs. Everything was laid out. And Nelsie reviewed it, and she's like, yeah, I can roll with that plan. And I know exactly how I can put this into operation.
Wow.
And so our partnership exists from that reason. We are very clear. Even without us being in the same room at the same time, we don't have to sit down to discuss things. We are very aware of what the next person needs to do and how it can be, how it can be achieved. Nelsie just says, Carl, I want to go to Cape Town. I figure out, okay, so what gigs can I do? What jokes must I write? What creativity? If she says she wants to eat elephant, I must know how to hunt one.
Wow. So let's say, okay, this is nice. Let's say we are. So earlier on this morning, I was talking to a friend, and she was talking about a wedding where Zukura was going, and she was just worried about the whole wedding thing and how it was going. I want to know, let's say we have the couple right here.
Yeah.
Wife, husband, they're about to get married. What would you say to them right now?
Right.
As the guys, these are the do's and don'ts. These are the points that I would want to give you.
Yeah. Firstly, I will tell them that your wedding is largely going to be a reflection of your marriage. The way you put that wedding together is largely going to be, And I'll start with the story that Nelsie and I, we were in our 30s, wanted to get married. Our parents were all divorced. Our parents remarried, so we had stepfathers, stepmoms, and whatever. Each of them were complicating how this thing was going to happen. And Nelsie and I decided we are going to do our own rules. The two of us got married on a little beach, private island in the Bahamas, and we spent almost nothing. And that characterized our lives moving forward. It was about the rules that Carl and Nelsie said. I don't care if you think you gave birth to me or you think you paid this for me. If you're not going to be happy about where I'm going, then you do not need to be a part of my life. It is not my responsibility to pay the bill of whatever it is that you used to raise me, because then it's a hostage situation. Quite often, couples don't understand this. So you make this wedding to please everyone. Almost like it's a thank you to everybody. But the only way that you can thank people is to, one, not get into debt, and number two, to keep your marriage intact. Every other thing doesn't matter. It's immaterial, because those same people are going to come back to you and they'll say, did we ever ask you? No. So you must understand that if you are the husband right now, and you are going to allow your wife to be subjected to a certain type of treatment of your wife, and you're not going to stand for her, then you have characterized how you are going to behave moving forward. Because unless you are a 100% defender, and she is your 100% defender, then you are not exercising the leave your mother and father and become one flesh. You are not representing, you are becoming something else. What you are doing is you are being cleaved to your mother and father and becoming 16,000 fleshes, of which the last time I checked, that's very demonic, because now you are legion. You are no longer one flesh. Yeah, so what you are doing is practicing a demonic practice, which is to carry everybody. Whereas you are being asked to cleave to one woman to become one flesh. That's what you are asked to do. So unless you're doing that, then I will challenge you to tell me if what you're doing is scriptural. Wow. Just my thoughts. I don't know. But that's what I'll tell them. Yeah. But I'll then say, please make sure when you invite me, put a nice bottle of whiskey on the table.
Just to make sure that you're catered.
Just to make sure. I will still come to you already.
But yeah. I just make sure I'm catered for properly. So that's really amazing, because I think a lot of people go into marriage. I mean, obviously now, not all of us will have a chance to have a first one. Like you,
practice run.
Then practice run. So it's good, I think, for people to have practical advice sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, on because I think a lot of, especially in the African culture, we shy away from these kind of like difficult, uncomfortable conversations,
right.
And we let kids and people get married blindly, right. And to just say, you know, just go into it. But I think the one thing that you said that really resonated with me was, marry your best friend.
Yeah.
Marry your best friend. Marry someone that you can still talk to, even when you don't want to talk to them.
Right.
And you hear something exciting, you just want to...
They have to smell you coming out of the toilet. Who else could do that? Like a stranger. Guys, you will be left because we flush a toilet Robuda and they don't like how it smells. That's a bad thing. But coming back to this African thing, which is a very important thing that you brought up, right? How African is it that we're doing the things that we're doing? Because let me explain what happens in Africa. In Africa, true Africa, is that your mother and father, when they're married, right? They've built their own hut, right? When you are born, your mother starts accumulating cattle based on the things that you are doing well. So, mwana andi sakura kumusha, dampa mombe, bachikutenda. And that's what they do. Then your father also does, when you do a task, he also does that. Your father will even try and get another bull and whatever it is. Because what are they doing? They're building dangarako. So that the day when you are 13, 14, your father, if you're a man, takes you, or if you're a girl, they take you and they make you build your own hut, bedroom yako. When you build your own bedroom, right? And you build dangarako, and you have your own field, and you're recognizing the community, and this is the day that you go to your father or your mother and you say, I am now ready to marry. Because so money was never part of the burden of our culture. And the reason why our culture is being screwed up is because who is taking up the financial burden through life of saying, did your parents start a fund for your lobola? If they haven't, then you cannot be subject to tradition when it comes to things to do with lobola. Your father, your parent, your mother. Now we're actually forgetting. Yes, we're judging our kids. Good, they're not telling us they're not doing this. But we must also judge our parents. They're leaving us with no inheritance, no home, no land, nothing, not even a language. We don't even know how to speak our own language. We don't even know our culture. And yet we try to use this to diminish the young people and say they're not doing the right thing. But are you doing the right thing as a parent?
As a parent.
Yeah. Why are our corporate companies not actually setting up products? How can you tell me that there's companies? It's very irresponsible corporate behavior to only have in the country funeral policies and not want to allow people to marry, build lives, buy houses. We want to blame everything on the government, but this guy kind of take a real look at what we're doing wrong in our culture. We must have companies that exemplify our belief systems. So we should not behave outside of our... How can we focus on death before we've even focused on life? On all the aspects of life which can actually be funded and leave people to get married and do like white weddings, and traditional weddings are now seen as like they're not religious. Very strange behavior. So those are some of the things that are actually compounding this issue that young people are going through. And it's a hard, this is why my wife and I moved to the village for that reason. To say that no, for the sake of my nephews and nieces, they must have cows to marry. They must have land to build on, to start. They cannot start as a nationless people. And this is not something that I need the government's approval to do. Something I can do now, myself I can do. And we'll have the power to do that, to correct this problem we've somehow created by seeking this Western like lifestyle, I think, that we seem to enjoy.
But that move, tell me about that move. You know what, I saw your post moving to the rural areas, and you know, I loved it. I was like, "Okay, I can do this, I think, for a week or so." How have you managed to sustain that? And but also, how do you make that kind of grand move?
Right.
You know?
I think when you calculate how much you pay in rent, and I think this is the difference. If you own a house, it's okay. I don't think you need to make a move. But if you don't own a house, you must certainly look at yourself very deeply and say, how do I start? Where do I start? I call what we do the catapult effect. And Nelson and I have been very used to doing that a lot, where we move backwards so that we can launch ourselves. Like, so if we want to travel around the world, Nelson and I will not eat in restaurants for maybe 4 years, saving money. For every restaurant we were going to go to, we will cook at home. We started getting better and better at this. But then what you'll find is Carl and Nelsie very, very quiet during the year. You see them November. It's our time. We go everywhere. We do everything, right? These are some of the things when you realize Nelson and I calculating that it cost us 300,000 rent since we were 18 and we left home. We just did a general calculation. How much have we paid so far in rent? 300,000 is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And you think
the whole house.
Yeah, you think someone like me who's a diabetic, I've got very little time on this earth. So if I don't make some drastic changes to my life, and so I think for me, I've been blessed by God that my situations have been so drastic that even our decision making has been even more drastic. So Nelson and I were like, it wasn't that we just moved. So again, Nelson and I don't really just do stuff. We moved because we came up with a business model that really made a lot of financial sense. So moving out of rented accommodation and buying tents, we started getting people booking those tents at $50 per person per night. So it wasn't like that we're just living in the tents. People believed in us so much that they came to live with us in the tents to see some people to make fun of us. But they were paying what? $50. I don't care how the money comes, but if it's there to make fun of me, it's okay. Then I started performing around the fire for 10 people and making more money than I was making in the clubs. I stopped performing in the clubs. It was costing me money to go to South Africa. But imagine I could sit around the fire with 10 people paying me $100 each. Where do you get that kind of money, for example? And so we were like, no, so we need to move into a village. We need to get a piece of land, because once we get into the village, we can leverage our startup, sell our startup, and then we can buy a house and we can, but this, we agreed it's going to take us maybe 5 years to achieve this, because we have dreams of where we want to live on a house on the lake. But if it means 5 years in a village, I will do 5 years gladly. If it means that the next 20 years are going to be, So again, it's really trying to make decisions based on the two of you. Because most of us don't make this decision because it's not based on the two. Remember what I said, how your marriage starts. It starts with 2 or you start with 16. If your marriage is there to impress 16 people, you will say, I won't move Musha because what will my best friend say? What will my bridesmaids say? What will my best man? What will my mother say? My father? All of those people largely inform how you think. So sometimes you think it's your decision, but actually it's not. You're trying to impress this legion of people you've put around yourself. And that's what makes it difficult for you to change job, for you to make important business decisions, is because you are not doing it with your best friend. Because if it's your best friend, they're your ride or die. Which can Zara. So you'll be like, if it impresses you, like for Nelsie, it was impressive for us to move Kumusha because I was building stuff. She was like, I just need a measure. From something you built. So for me, she's my only indicator. If she says we do it, we do it. She says we don't, we don't. And that's an easy process. That's what makes it so easy, because both of us were in agreement. In fact, I was in agreement. I was thinking about that 5 years ago. Nelsie brought it up and she was angry because she was the one paying the rent. She was the one who had to do the bills. It's like, nah, Carl, you need another plan. I cannot be forking out 800 to $1,000 a month. Doesn't make sense. Then we pay $1,000 so that we're hungry a whole month. What if we could keep the $1,000 and use it to, in the village, we have the best wine. Our tuck shop now knows what prawns and like what seafood. Actually, orders there's the seafood for us. We live the life we want to live. It's just in the village. So there's people in town and they're taking water in a bucket. I take water in a bucket, but I have an outdoor shower. It overlooks the best sunset that you can imagine. I hear lions at night roaring. I have fresh air. My brain is supercharged. I can go into town and do jobs so my clients only pay because they would have paid the hotel booking for me to do the job. So I actually get paid much better because I moved to the village. So sometimes moving backwards doesn't mean actually that your life gets worse. You move backwards, but it catapults you even further.
And the experience, how has the experience been for you in terms of creativity?
Yeah.
Moving away from town and now living in the village.
Wow. It's been insane because when you meet villagers, you realize that I know this needs to be said because people think when you go to the village that you're dealing with people who are primitive in thinking. They're not. I adopted these 2 boys who helped me sort of figure out how to live in the village. They were consultants. You know what I'm saying? So I would be asking them questions. I saw a scorpion, say, and these boys would understand biology, gestation periods of animals and so on. And they could tell it's going to rain today. I thought it was rubbish. They could track things. They look at the ground and say, oh, this is the type of snake that came across. The knowledge I gained was so insane. I literally became a rural development expert because now I could channel that information and put it in marketing terms. Rural B&B as a startup would never have been born if it wasn't for the fact that I lived in the village. And I saw that the more I lived in the village, the first year we had 300 visitors.
Wow.
300 visitors.
Wow.
Without a business model.
So you were creating an experience.
Yes.
With them.
So people were coming, people were getting from government officials to it was insane. People came and then I was like, wow. So I can be a tourist attraction. And I realized this is my biggest strength now. I realized that there's Zimbabwe. You can visit Zimbabwe, but you can visit Zimbabwe because of Carl. Carl is a tourist attraction. You are visiting him specifically. And we started noticing documentary makers, filmmakers, YouTubers, they are coming for me as Zimbabwean because I'm a testimony of this place. I'm the only person with a curated lifelong experience of this country. And that's what it taught me. It taught me that I could literally exist in my own sphere of influence and say, people come to visit me. I am now an asset. I am now a national asset. That people will be like, oh, there's that. If you go to Zimbabwe, there was someone who was even referred by the State Department in the US. When you go to Zimbabwe, go and see a guy called Carl Joshua Ncube. He's doing interesting stuff in the village. And so I learned a lot in 2 years being in the village. But we knew that's what we wanted to have research and understand the life in there. Before I do any project, I like to immerse myself like that. And it's been, I miss the village now. I literally, every time I'm in town, I feel like, what on earth are you guys doing
here?
Like you, I'm like, you are mad. I literally, I'm like, you guys are insane. So you guys, you don't have power. You're not buying solar panels. You are not walking everywhere you go. You're driving. Literally, fuel cars, not even electric. You're not making a change and adjustment. Who are you waiting to make that adjustment for you? Can't believe you're not doing this. That's how I look when I come to the city, because all my neighbors, they all went and bought a solar panel, even a small one. But the fact is they're doing it differently to us. They have put biogas. They are cooking with their own waste that they're generating. They have no plastics around. They are recycling water. They're recycling materials. They are doing things that are insane. And yet here in town, the people who Vanua Shora are busy saying kutiso, no, they're not even thinking about mbeo. They're now thinking about like generational seeds. So they now realize they don't want to have like Monsanto, or not Monsanto, let me not say brands, but they're not thinking about these bigger GMO brands, right? Hybrids and whatever it is. They're now thinking, no, these seeds were used by my grandmother, and I'll continue using these seeds to give a more organic. I don't care what I'm being told I must put in my fields. I'm not putting it. I'm going to use more natural processes. And so even right now, we found out traveling somewhere, there was a woman, apparently they discovered a grain in Zimbabwe that almost went extinct if it wasn't for her.
Wow.
If it wasn't for this one woman, this grain would be extinct. Now, NGOs, everyone is coming in to make sure that these seeds are propagated, because we had almost lost a whole grain if it wasn't for one woman. Wow. We talk about heroes in this country, but we don't talk about these ones. these voices, like these actual situations. And that's the village is like that. There's just so much of this that we're missing out on.
Wow. Jeez. But no, when you're living in the village, right?
Yeah,
And then things happen.
Yeah.
Don't you sometimes miss town? I'm just
we look at town now as a tourist experience. So when we want to go out, my wife and I will plan, we're doing a trip to Harare. So what do we need? We book an Airbnb. We look at the clubs we want to go to. We look at the restaurants we want to eat at. We raise the money over that time. We then come to Harare as we are right now for a few days, talk to some sponsors, do some work with them, raise some money as well. And then we go back to the village. Like, we don't have to constantly be in town. We can enjoy this lifestyle. And sometimes we go I remember we went from the village to Mexico. Like, I remember that day very well because we live close, our village is close to the airport in Vic Falls. So we took a Scotch card to the airport. So it was $1, right? $1. Every time you go to the airport, it's $30, guys. Just remember that. $30 going, $30 come back. We took $1 Scotch card, went to the airport, and we flew to Mexico from Victoria Falls. Now, if that's not a story of triumph of living in the village, I don't know what else is. Because I was going to go speak at a conference that's called the Conference of Conference of Brilliant Minds in Mexico that happens once a year. And so imagine that. I'm living in the village. While everyone in the country is laughing at me, the people in Mexico are like, we want to hear the story
of you staying.
Because the whole world is moving to the country. They talk about moving to the country, going off grid.
Yeah.
It's a trend. In Zimbabwe, we are still, I can promise you this, Zimbabweans are going to exchange their rural homes for houses in America, only to realize that there's earthquakes, typhoons, there's lots of food shortage, there's lots of stuff that's happening. Their banks are crashing. Their credit bubbles they're bursting. But we look down on our own things because we, again, like the thing of tradition, of understanding that our traditions were actually very clever. They were actually very sophisticated. We didn't build Great Zimbabwe as a fluke.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Great Zimbabwe was it's an amazing story. It's an amazing story.
Yeah.
So just to go back, I know we're talking about I know we're going to be all over the place, but there's some areas that I really want to talk about. At the beginning of the year, I remember you got really sick, your hand. What happened and how did you discover it, and how has the healing process been, and what has it done to you as Carl, as a person, and the way you think about life now?
Yeah, I think about 2 years ago, something random happened. I must have stepped on something small. And being a diabetic, we're told to watch for wounds because they don't heal easily. And it turns out my whole foot was rotting. I had a hole in my foot. And I remember one of the doctors gave me something like 28 antibiotics. And that started to alter even my mind state to such an extent that even when I was talking to Nelsie, the 5-year-old Carl that we were talking about during that divorce I was going through, I became that. I would literally be like, oh, so you're saying this to me because I'm Ndebele, or you think just because my mom left me, or, I regressed. And it's only when we started looking back at the medication and what I was eating, we started taking that stuff out and we realized, oh, okay, that's where the problem was. Then later on, we started working on this book, Chikafu. So Chikafu was me remodeling my whole lifestyle, what I was eating and so on, developed a book, and partly also just raising money for other activities we wanted to do. Then we get this amazing call by the first lady to do recipes and train her chefs. Like, mind-blowing. I was like, my life is now taking this, trajectory. That's amazing. We're now talking indigenous foods. She's heavy into that. And I'm like, they've already, the state has picked up on what I'm working on. This is the first time we've ever had the government engage us on any level. And straight after that, my hand just started swelling. I couldn't understand. It was swelling. It felt like I had slept on it or something. I thought it was my wrist had been sprained. I was now coming back into comedy. I done a roast, and then we're going on tour in South Africa. So I had to perform with my hand in a brace. And it was when I was doing a show in Malawi that, the guys in Malawi, there were doctors in the front row. They were like, oh, you've got cellulitis. I'm like, what's that? It's like, oh no, an infection has gone under your skin. And what's happening is that it's kind of eating away at, you're kind of liquefying basically in your hand. So what will happen? Antibiotics, we need to do antibiotics. We need to, drain whatever is there. But being a diabetic, I'm afraid you might need to be looking at the possibility of an amputation. So
you're in Malawi?
Yeah, I was in Malawi. So I do the gig. We come back to Zimbabwe. The doctors are like, yeah, for sure. We can confirm that this is what it is. They did a drainage. I think they drained a cup of pus out of my hand. It was really disgusting. Like, I think some people, I posted it on, like, because I had to tell people what was going on, because people were seeing me in hospital. Imagine fans are seeing you in hospital reception. So I didn't want wrong information getting out. So to control the narrative, I just went and just leveled up with everyone. This is what's going on. Then, I was staying at my mom's house at the time, going through healing, and then mom dies. Mom just dies from nowhere. She just literally goes to bed. We think, Nelson and I felt like I needed to be close to my mom because I was sick. I was very, very ill. And so my worry was anything could happen. Let's all be prepared. So if anything happens, I want to be around family. I want to be around my mom. I was really feeling like that. Then mom just dies, and I remember I'm now already going through this depression. I'm going through the leg and then the hand. And then now all of a sudden, my entire past converges. Because remember that divorce? Remember all those relatives? Remember now they're all at the house and my mother has died. And it's weird because God was like, I am going to do amazing things with you with your hands tied behind your back. I didn't know he meant literally I would not have use of my hands. And God has just literally been clawing me out of God was just like, the only thing I need from you, Carl, I need you to get out of bed. I'll take care of everything else. You just need to, whatever the time is, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, don't worry about 8 to 5. Get out of bed as an act. Get out of bed, make the bed as your wife and you always do, because we've got a ritual. We make the bed together. So even if we're staying in an Airbnb, we'll make the bed together. So we got out of bed, we're making the bed together. And then God was just showing me these new things. AI, where tech is going. I'm now starting to utilize my disabilities now working, making me do a lot more amazing things. I'm actually doing better things than when I was a lot younger. So in a way, the events that are happening outside of all of this bad stuff, I can tell you on paper, my life is terrible. But I can also tell you on paper, my life is absolutely unbelievably amazing. It just all depends which side of the stuff I'm looking at. Am I looking at the yellow chair or the black wall? Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
But the healing, so the healing process now, and obviously losing your mom as well at the same time, mentally and everything that was going on. Yeah. How did you manage all that, and what were the life lessons from that you can take out of all that?
I haven't managed it, right? I'll be honest. Because I remembered when I wanted to manage my dad, he died. Then when I had done chikafu, and I wanted to, because my mom was a home economics lecturer, that's where I got my cooking from. When I done chikafu, and then my mom dies. So in my head, it's very difficult to reconcile why on earth why is this happening, And God seriously is like, death happens to make space. We can't all exist all at the same time. We all have our time, it begins and it ends, right? And it gives someone else an opportunity for them to begin and to end. Mine it's now a different journey. I realize the journey is about honesty and not so much about healing. Healing comes from being honest. It's coming from, I'm waking up and I'm having a bad day. I'm now sure to let people know I'm having a bad day. This is not a good day, guys. I try also to not be, I notice a lot of people suffer mental health issues. Then they become spokespersons and advocates for it. I think it's very dangerous because you're not there. You can't surround yourself with the thing that you are, like if you're going through mental health issues, you shouldn't really be around more mental health issues. So like my inbox is inundated. People say, help me, I've got this situation. I'm like, yes, in my day, I don't want to know about how you or your brother committed suicide, or your sister, this child, or she aborted, or any of these issues. While I sympathize with it, I want you to understand I am where you are.
I'm also trying to heal.
Yeah, so I think you can read my story. You can follow what I'm doing, but don't make me your anchor, because I am also a sinking ship as it stands. I don't know what tomorrow is going to be like. I certainly don't know what my triggers are. But what I now know is I know, to be honest, very quickly, even with my wife, and say, "There's, you know, something's not
right.
Something's not right. It's off. It doesn't mean I don't love you. This is not a thing to take personally, that I'm not talking the whole day, so therefore I don't love you. I don't want to see people, and people don't know this. I'm an introvert. They think I'm like I'm always out, but actually I'm not always out. When people have seen me, I'm at work, but I quickly leave and I go home. I try to keep my circles very small. I don't really like being around people. I don't really like the idea of being around people because they want me to work when I'm around them. When I'm just sitting, I just want to have lunch. People want me to tell jokes. Or if we're just sitting around having a bride, they want me to cook. So it's a difficult journey. And also when I'm in public, people want to talk about their mental health issues. And I'm like, guys, you guys are lucky you can talk about them. Every time I talk about my problems, it has to hit the press. I want you to understand that I'm dealing with this on a public arena. It's when I have an opinion about something. If I don't like something, someone quickly writes in the comments, "Hey, but I thought my mental health, so I can't have an opinion now," because that kind of thing. We live in a very cruel world. And I don't cope. It's not easy. It's definitely a sinking battle. But I trust what God said. Get out of bed. Get out of bed. And now I've become an expert at getting out of bed. It's now my new skill. As much as people say I design, I'm now an expert at getting out of bed and going to bed, because the in-betweens now, I now know how to, I know how to design with tears streaming down my face. I know how to have a trigger and still be able to make people laugh, because I still go back. We have incidences where, like Nelsie and I, we don't have kids. And the one time we got pregnant, I remember that time I got so excited. I was telling jokes about being a father. We've gone on tour in South Africa. One of the shows, Nelsie just comes to me with, "Babes, I'm spotting," and we're losing the baby. I obviously knew that's what was happening. Then I had to go and do the gig. Now, when you do gigs, you're not allowed to change your script. They pay you for that story regardless. You can't change the story. I'm backstage, I'm crying. I'm performing in front of everyone about how excited I am being a dad, knowing very well my wife is losing a baby. And for your relatives to then come and say, "Yeah, well, it's because you always share your stuff online. That's the reason why." I'm like, yeah, well, that's the reason why you're not in my circle. That's the reason why when I got married, remember what I said? It's all about the two of us. If I trusted your opinion, I would have let you into my space so that those words could have hurt me, but they're not going to hurt me, because I only get hurt by one person, and that's the one person right now who's losing a baby. So I couldn't give a toss what you think. So it's, that journey, I just hope people just continue to talk openly about it, but I don't think any of us have had it figured out.
It's true. I read somewhere, was I reading or I heard, was I watching, where they said, I think it was a comedian saying, this life that we live is it's sometimes very lonely.
Yeah.
Because you're up there on stage, laughing, talking to everyone, then you get backstage, you get into your car, you're going home. Sometimes it's actually very lonely. And then sometimes it's tiring, like for you. It was something I just read. So I was like, oh, so now when you're talking, I was just thinking about it, and I was like, does that resonate?
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, okay, let's look at the process of what it takes to write a joke. So when you're writing a joke, you're doing journalism. So you do a lot of research. You have to feel the emotional temperature of how the world is feeling. In order to know that, you have to absorb yourself in it. You have to engross yourself in the feeling of what they are feeling before a joke can be written. So firstly, I must feel sad. Then I must somehow write a joke that causes you to heal. Not me, you, but I've now taken your burden on my shoulders, and I have to go home with it. Then I have to get criticized for making a joke that has to do with something that is factual and exists in the world, only because I was trying to do it in such a way. So for example, I have often been called tribalist because my jokes are about Shona and Ndebele, or they're racist, white and black, right? And what people don't know is that I have to be the enemy in the room so that the two of you can be friends. You are the guys who are the enemies. You're the only reason why you can now talk to each other is because I've said the joke. The only reason why you can conclusively say that Carl is a tribalist is that you now agree that it's wrong. I made you agree. I did it. I had to become the evil in both of you and give you humor so that the two of you can have peace. That's what makes comedy depressing. because a comic, and so why often we get attacked for saying something is because we have said something that already exists. We may not have found the right words to say it, but we're not coming up with something that didn't exist. That's the reason why you're angry. You're angry because I've said something that is actually factually true. I may have used the wrong words to say it, but it's actually factually true.
Well, wow. Jeez, yeah, and just carrying on that is like being a creative in Zim.
Yeah.
How is it? How is it for other upcoming creatives? What would you say to them? I mean, because I feel like a lot of people think that you can't be a creative in Zim.
Right.
But I truly, I don't believe that. I always believe that there's opportunities, you just have to be able to see them. But coming from you, who's a creative and also multifaceted. I mean, in terms of creative, you are very creative. You can cook, you can tell jokes, you know, now rural Airbnb.
Right.
That whole creative side, can you give some advice to the young people and what you think it's like to be a creative in Zim?
Yeah. I think to be a creative is to solve problems. So in the past, I think what we forgot about marketing. Marketing was about exhausting the client's budget.
No, say that again. I think I want you to reinforce that. To be a creative is to
solve problems. So in the past, we got used to clients just giving us budgets, and then they said, come up with a creative. They were looking for, you know, in advertising, there's above the line and below the line. So just to explain to people, the stuff that you see out in the open is what you think is the only function of marketing or advertising. Yeah. But below the line, there's other messaging that's there. The toilets in a mine or the mine shafts, the things that you don't see that are being, right? So creativity is about solving a problem. Right now, Zimbabwe has a national crisis. So for young people who are in the advertising or thinking of getting in the advertising space, this national crisis could do with more creative thought and input. Creatives who are really going to look at the core of Zimbabwean problems and say, what is it that causes us disunity? Politics is not the only solution to Zimbabwe. Companies making more money is the solution. They make more money, they can export products, they can create better products, they can make more money, contribute to our GDP. That's solving a problem. So as a creative, it's not about you saying, I can come and make designs with 10 colors. No, that's not what it is. What I've done is I have set up branding opportunities for companies. So for companies who are looking to be in the food space to create new food products using locally based ingredients, I created a brand called Shkaf, because I've got the control of saying, okay, here's a brand that is now looking at how do you introduce local ingredients? Because I know there are people who are going to need to introduce syrups with masao into sour milk, or introduce them into opaque beer, or those kind of things. These are ideas that are going to come and fix problems in Zimbabwe. So the new realm in creativity is to come up with ICT-based solutions, AI-based solutions that are actually going to uplift our people, bring them up into employment, creating jobs, mitigating against the advent of AI and those kind of things coming in, rather than that it's about the software and the design and just creating visuals, because that's not what it's about. It's not about jingles. It's not about saying, this artist sang a song, so let's take this artist's song, let's change the lyrics and then put our words, so that if I had a song that was like, everyone loved it because it was called Boom, Boom, Boom. Now it's like best electronic whatever every day with the 60, our advertising, and I'm sorry to say, like, I just think our marketing needs to go back to school. Like literally, Day.Dot needs to go back to school, because they don't understand just how far they've taken us. They've taken us down this rabbit hole of inexcusably bad campaigns. Like it's shameful what we see. You just go to South Africa and you look at an advert and you're like,
exactly.
You're like, wow, have we gone that far? And all of them are going to complain and say it's the client. You're like, no,
it's not.
It's your fault. You could have said no. You can walk away from that client. It's your job to be the expert. The fact that you're acting like you're not an expert is the reason why things are like that. So to the young people getting into advertising, please do not fall on that same thing. As a country, we're there to get good, we're there to get seen, and we're there to get paid. And that's what these are the solutions we need to know, is that how can Zimbabweans be the best at what we do? And how can we make sure everybody sees it? Is it important for us to talk about only the bad things? Are we the only country with bad things? I don't think so. So every product, we know how many products, we work in marketing. The clients will say to you, here's a new product. Unfortunately, there's a side effect. For example, I know there's a particular drink that they used to say it would separate and cause sediments at the bottom. So it would separate into parts. And then they called it shake. Why? Because that's a marketing gimmick to fix a
production.
Yeah, they have gone and said to people that, oh, your beer will separate. No. So that is how marketing was solving a problem. And in Zimbabwe, if we're not solving those problems, if you're seeing yourself making a jingle, I'm sorry, if you're a creative and your jingle is not solving a problem, then Asha, please get out of marketing. Like, we don't need those kind of people. We want to be better as a country, and we can't do that when seriously our marketers are playing on that level. It's just shameful.
Well, I'm sorry to jump in.
Yes.
I'm a creative myself,
Yes.
and I'm thinking that, of course, you're right by what you're saying, but it's really hard for a Zimbabwean marketer to stand their ground because, first of all, you're looking at the money, right? I'm going to get paid $10 for this job before you consider anything. So someone can say, take this artist's song and turn it into this kind of thing for our company, right? In your head, you're like, no, we can't do this. I have a better solution, but that's what they want. And if you're willing to go, there's someone else willing to take the job and do the same thing they want. So it's a matter of survival because our industry is in, ICU right now. So now, how do we navigate that kind of situation when you know that at the end of the day, the same product is going to come out, but you won't get paid and you won't get another job because of the way our economy is set up? So how do you then navigate that situation?
Right. So it ends when the owner of an ad agency plays golf with the CEO who is his client. They all agree that there's a budget to work on a campaign. The head of the ad agency then sends an intern, probably someone with less experience in marketing, to be the client service, the interface with the client. They then bring a terrible brief down to a creative director who has over 25 years of experience. Now, already, that's a problem. That's already a problem. I was a creative director of one of the biggest ad agencies in the country. I was there in the briefs. I would literally stand my ground. I would play golf with the CEO. I would motivate them to go in a particular direction. It's a job you have to do. You can't just take the money. We know they're buying the 4x4s. The owners are not even involved in the agencies. We know that's happening. There are interns who they send, PAs, whatever it is that they send, who all of a sudden maybe have a marketing diploma, send them to go talk to a client. And they all agree on what is wrong, because even in that client's company, the marketing executive has very little or no experience. Their marketing director is not even involved in this conversation. They've just been told to churn out jingles. So now when it goes down to a creative director who is they have all the tools, they have all the kits, they have all the cameras, they have all the knowledge, being given the wrong brief. They've been missing in all the meetings. Tell me, how many meetings have the actual creative director in there? This is where the whole problem actually comes. That's why we end up with the type of marketing where the person says, and challenge me in the comments. We don't hear this from the clients. Make the logo smaller. How does making the logo smaller
or make
change
it
the
bigger?
price? How does it change the price of the product? Or how does, oh yeah, that's a nice documentary, but we need a shot of our CEO right at the end. Like, really? Is that all you saw in the entire creative? So my issue is that, where is the reporting? I would like to see the reporting of the metrics. Show me the advert, show me the numbers. Or show me the competitor, because we're talking about a country that's running monopolies. So show me how you would have coped against a competitor in that same field. Show me. Because go to South Africa, take your brand, take it in South Africa, let's do a comparative. Would you survive? My argument is no, you would not survive. You're only lucky because Zimbabwe runs a monopoly. Why we're in ICU is because it's only the same brands that we see. They know who they are. And they know the practice that they're bringing about. It's all the same thing over and over again. And we're recycling and we're getting and now it's become so worse. They're even going back to their adverts in the 80s.
Oh, that's scary, yeah.
So if I'm lying, someone can challenge me in the comments and say, but the real truth is it's an ICU because I largely actually blame the actual marketing companies themselves. Yeah. We used to have bodies that were there to control the practices. Now, we're actually shocked that some listed companies are going to university students who are charging $5 for an advert to produce their creative. And this is where we are.
And that's so bad because it then kills the industry, it kills the creativity. It just, because there is so much that can be done to improve our current marketing, current advertising. There's so much. But I guess like what you're saying that we now need to start to challenge the status quo, to challenge and to fight for what we believe in, or to create new markets, new things like what you've done, create rural Airbnb, create something that then people come to.
Yeah, and also the thing is, like, I've just recently done a documentary called Voices. It's a 6-minute, a small 6-minute film, and there's no voices in it. But what I'm trying to illustrate to Zimbabweans, there's more to this country than the politics. There are discussions, serious discussions we're not having. This discussion we're talking about in terms of marketing is a big discussion. This is a discussion that should be tabled even at Parliament to say what is wrong. Because now we are then failing on all levels. When the warriors or whatever it is, anything that we're doing, we're failing to market. We're failing to market things because we have gone to that level where the agencies are giving us a raw deal. They are, and they're using their excuse that they're using is that either the clients are not paying, they're not paying enough, or they'll say the clients are saying that they don't want that type of creative. So who's to blame then? Are all clients
like that
at fault? Because how come all the clients are still manufacturing good products? Are they not listening to their head of production who's telling them that, no, we cannot add that much sugar, it will spoil the product? Because if they listen to the client, would have worse products on the market. So don't give me that excuse in marketing, because somebody is saying no where you are saying yes. And it's that attitude there that we need to adjust or look at ourselves or address it, but not brush it off. We can't brush it off and say client. We must now look internally and say, we have a part to play in this. How do we fix it?
Yeah, so we have to introspect. So anyway, there's so much that we could go on. I still have so many questions that I want to ask you, Carl. So in a nutshell, just give me, first of all, what would you say to 18-year-old Carl right now and to that 5-year-old Carl?
Yeah. 5-year-old Carl, I would say mom and dad were both right. Yeah, because there was a conflict in thinking both were wrong. 18-year-old Carl, I think I would like to go back to that Carl. Like, I remembered I started my first company when I was 16, and it was myself. People may know Kudam Sasiwa Begotten Son, Jeff Mamuka, and Shingi Mtezo. And I remembered we were in the Office of Ministry of Finance asking for $750,000 to start our own broadcast station, because we believed as youth we were not we had actually cornered the government into listening to us, and we were supposed to be giving an address to Parliament. I think it's at that point that our parents even panicked. My mom sent me to the UK and whatever. I want to be that fearless. I want to be that guy who really believed in this country enough that he said, I have no right to be in this space, but because I am a Zimbabwean, I have every right to corner them into that position. That 18-year-old Carl was a Carl that if I could have maintained, if I didn't listen to everyone else until I got to this point, I know I could have done a lot. And that's why I believe in young people. That's why I go into schools, I talk to young people and I'm like, don't wait, don't say when I finish school, I will. It's you can do it now. You have the same hands, brain, whatever. You can literally do it now. And that's the belief that I want young people to do. I even have WhatsApp groups where I just throw advice to young people. If they join the group, 3 a.m. in the morning, I'm just throwing advice. I'm just throwing, I'm even writing a book called Starting from Scratch, which is showing how we're building rural B&B from zero to becoming $1 billion company. We're telling you the story as it happens. I don't want to tell you at the end. I want to prove to you that I'll tell you now, and it will be $1 billion company. And these are the steps that it's actually going through.
Fantastic. Five life lessons from you.
5 life lessons. So, gazelle doesn't know how fast it can run unless it's being chased by a cheetah, which means you're only as good as your problems, right? Get good, get seen, get paid. That is the mantra to any success. Always write a list of 100 things that you want in life, then split them into 3 piles. The things you can do, the things money can do, the things God can do. The reason being is because then you learn personal discipline, the things that are only in your power. Then you learn financial discipline, the things that require money. So you must know the price of the things you want. If you want a Ferrari, write the price down. There's nothing wrong. Write the list of 100 things that you want. Even between couples, agree what your 100 list is. Then the things God can do, the things that are not in your sphere of influence to control. So for as long as you think that you shouldn't worry about certain, don't worry too much about the politics or religion or these things. Don't worry about these debates. The aping being very bigger than the other one. As long as it's not in your control, put that in the God list. Because only when you have enough money, maybe you can have influence in that area. But learning those areas of discipline, right? The fourth one is that there's a reason why supermarkets make money and you aren't. It's because of systems. So in a supermarket, everyone knows you get a basket and you go to the till with your stuff. You have to let go of things. So remember that as a creative. So if a client asks for 100 things and they get to the till and they don't like the bill, they must remove things to reduce the cost. They cannot have the same product with diminished tools. You can't do that in a supermarket, right? And like, you must also don't give them credit. So for example, get your money up front because you're not a lending institution. You cannot lend because a person who's lending, they ask for your bank statements, proof of residence. That's what I do. If a client wants to pay me a deposit and pay me later, I want your bank statements. I want to know that you'll be able to pay me in 6 months. I want a letter from your bank actually saying that you actually do your payment and you process your payments through them. Because I don't want stories when I'm now receiving my money. Do you get what I'm saying? And maybe like the fifth one, I think people must just learn to calculate what makes them happy. I calculated and I realized I'm very cheap. When you realize what makes you happy, which is taking away what makes other people happy, just you, then focus on just doing those things. I realized like per day, it doesn't cost much. As long as I get my cheap whiskey and I get my internet, I'm okay. Right?
I like that.
Yeah. And when I say cheap whiskey, in total, my $5, and my mixer, I'm okay. That's what makes me happy. Because managing those expectations allows you to actually build upon it even more. Because every day, your minimum balance is very easy to attain. Once you've attained it, you are happy. Anything else is what? Is a bonus. Rather than say, to make myself happy, I need a Lamborghini. That's really hard to attain because even when you lose the Lamborghini, even if I had a Lamborghini and I lost it, I'll still come back to my what? My $5 whiskey. Because I'll still be happy. So I think those will be my 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway, before we close, I have my fun 5 that we do before we leave.
Right. Okay.
So what's your favorite color and why?
Pink.
Pink?
Yeah, it's just a hot color, easy to design with, easy to see, loud shouts. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Favorite animal and why?
I like, it's a chow chow, a dog. It's a fluffy dog. It looks like a tokoloshi. I don't know why I like it, but it's such a cute
what's the
dog.
way do you like it?
Yeah, it's lazy. It acts like a cat, so it doesn't require your attention. I don't like dogs that are fussy in my face. Yeah, so I like chow chow.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
What are you reading now?
I'm actually reading my own book. Sorry, I'm reading Chikaf because I'm proofreading it. Currently, so to be honest, I'm reading Chikaf, I'm reading Chief, and I'm reading Starting from Scratch. So these are the 3 books I'm writing. So the Chief is actually, I'm enjoying that more because it's actually a comic. It's a graphic novel. Oh, okay. So because I can't draw with my hand, I've been writing my movie scripts into AI and it's been generating images. And it's been such a beautiful collaboration because it's like I'm sitting there with a designer doing my own book. So it's quite fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
So we've packed our bags, our passports. We're going to the airport.
Yes. Where
are we going?
Okay. So we have to do a do-over of Thailand.
Oh,
yeah, nice. I have to go back to Thailand. It was
Thailand. Yeah. It was fantastic.
Yeah. The food, I should have just eaten more street food. I was just too afraid. Now I'll gladly do it again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, Carl, we could be here the whole afternoon. We have to do it. We're going to have to go to the rural. Do it in front of the hut. Yes. Yeah. So we have to do a part 2. Bring the yellow couches. I'll bring that. You have to bring the yellow couches. The yellow couches. We're gonna carry the yellow couches. I have a sketch card where they can fit. Yeah. So we're gonna do a part 2 because I think there's just so many areas and so many parts that we didn't even unpack. Yeah. And I think there's so many lessons that people can learn from you. People can heal. People can be inspired, and that's the whole idea of moments. Really, is to inspire people, to help them to heal, to help them to feel that, you know what, I can do this. And, I think you've given us so many nuggets that our viewers can take. And thank you so much for your time. and for just being such an amazing guest.
No, thank you so much, Nyengi. Thank you. I'm so happy finally to be here.
No, right?
I've just been watching him like, when am I going to come?
No, thank you, Carl. And to our viewers, thank you so much. Please continue to watch, to subscribe, and we'll definitely bring you a part 2 of Carl. Have a fantastic week. Bye.